of Gamelight. I've been more than 10 years in this industry within gaming and edtech, worked in Berlin and Hamburg companies. I launched and scaled 3 startups, all headquartered also in Hamburg within mobile app and gaming industries. And I'm founder of Gamelight. This is the largest rewarded UA platform right now. Now, rewarded UA existed since a while, since more than 10 years. If we include instant CPI, when users would get rewards for installs, that existed since a very long time. And last 10 years it evolved and to playtime rewards, event rewards, multi-reward, etc. But it was always a secondary channel for a lot of game publishers. So it was never #1 source to run your UA campaigns, more like a mix on top of your social channels, on top of your video networks. To specify what we mean with reward UA, because there's quite some confusion quite often, there are pre-install rewards. Those are rewarded video networks, when users get rewards for watching an ad, for example. That's not what we mean. What we mean is post-install rewards. Here users would get rewards for playtime, for playing 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and so on, or for certain events, achieving certain milestones within the game. So when we talk about rewarded UA, we don't mean rewarded video networks, we mean rewarded playtime and rewarded events, so post-install rewards. Would push through, maybe they would like the game, because usually if you play for some certain time, you actually get interest in the game. Or, for example, they played for long term, and after level 20, 30, 50, 100, there was one level that was way too challenging, and they kept on trying again and again and again, and then they dropped because they just couldn't finish it, and they lost interest. So those are 2 cases of rewarded UA when it can help, because what happens is users get different rewards for certain actions. So they would get rewards for finishing a tutorial or finishing that challenging level. So if they would drop in general before the reward, without the reward, they would now push through and become a loyal user that would play your game for a year or more. Now, this means rewarded UA brings higher engagement and retention rate in comparison to traditional channels. And this also serves like a loyalty program for your own game, because it's not simply events, but for example, in case of Gamelight, there are also rewards for things like come back every day for 7 days, 30 days, 60 days, and so on. So these little retention drivers that you would have within your game, they are involved in the rewarded UA usually. That would be done with rewarding partner. This, what we did differently, because if it exists, why did it not grow in the last years? We built an AI algorithm which analyzed a lot of user data. To be more specific, I mentioned that we have our own apps, our own platform, and when users download our apps, they give us access to the app usage data, which means we see which apps they are playing, when, how much, and so on, and they do it to get rewards from our platform. We analyze all of this data, age, gender, location, user preferences, their behavior within the games, and what they do and when they do, and then we recommend games. And why this works better is usually if you run with rewarded, you are used to having manual targeting, so age and gender, OS version, and so on, which work to some degree. Yeah, it's better than not having any targeting at all, obviously. It's better to have some kind of targeting that fits your game. But it means that if you would have a strategy game, let's say, you would probably target males 30 plus, 30, 50 maybe, because it would be a better fit for your game. But there's definitely female user, which is maybe 20 years old, which would absolutely love your game, but you missed them out, you didn't target them. Or there's probably a male user who is 40 years old, but who would hate your game, but you wasted your budget on them, you bought them. So which results usually in lower averages. What we did is we changed and did it on a user level, so it's not anymore any average groups. It's a lot of data analyzed by the algorithm in real time, which finds patterns between users based on their behavior, and then finds which exact game would be a good fit for which user, instead of averages and more. What this results in, we have maximized return on ad spend and maximized retention, because every user gets very personalized recommendations, and once they start playing, this is usually what they would enjoy playing. This also results very high in high LTV and ARPU for the reason that I mentioned. So instead of having average users that would fit you, you pick every best user from every group if you use the AI algorithm, and you get high ARPUs. Usually we see 2 to 3 times higher ARPU. So if you usually have $5-10 ARPU, you would get $20-30 ARPU with your game, which also elevates your whole game KPIs. This also means shorter learning phase and real-time optimizations, because you don't anymore do things like your average group, target it, and after a couple of weeks get back to this and change the targeting and so on. It happens all real time. So you start running campaign, more data comes in, more real-time optimizations happening at the same time too. So there's more real-time optimization, which means also minimal loss of time. And additionally, what I didn't mention earlier, the launching campaigns is way easier. So instead of figuring out a dashboard for half an hour, then another half an hour setting things up, usually it's from registration to launching campaign, it's only 2 to 3 minutes. There's no creatives involved because we fetch everything from the store directly and use those creatives. And the whole process is way easier to set up and also to optimize because all of this is done by the algorithm. So UA managers focus on more bigger topics, more strategic topics, and more creative things like which direction to take, what kind of direction to have for the whole campaign instead of sitting and analyzing Excel sheets the whole day and doing written work. This resulted in a lot of awards and recognition. This is just part of them. We won primarily for 2 directions. One is for our AI algorithm, so tech awards that we won for the algorithm that we built. Those are best AI tool, best AI algorithm, best data implementation, and so on. And the other side is the result that UA managers get, game publishers get, which would be the app advertising platform, best UA company, and best mobile marketing platform, and so on. On the very latest App Supplier Index, which was published just a few weeks ago, we are also the best rewarded source. This is a ranking for complete gaming, all categories, all genres, all geos, so it's a global ranking. And we are ranked number 8, which is huge for rewarded, because what I mentioned, it used to be just a little mix before and just an addition to what everyone would run, maybe like 10% of the budget and so on, and they would have policies that this is at 10%, you can't run more than that for rewarded, focus on video networks, focus on social. We also ranked on Singular report recently, also a couple of weeks ago, as one of the highest growing by both ad spend in percentage and net ad spend within the industry in the last quarter. Now, some examples of case studies, how this works and why it works for publishers. So it works, as I mentioned, both for IAP and ad monetized games. It works for different genres, for casual or puzzle, mid-core strategy, social casino. So every kind of game category would have a fit because it's not a person doing it, it's an algorithm that can optimize and decide which game would be a fit. And usually there would be a user who would love certain kinds of games. So if you have a game that's in general successful, that works, there's probably a user that would love it. And we make sure that to find the user for you instead of working on what works in general for your genre. For example, this is from case study we did with Joy City. It's one of the largest South Korean game publishers, and they have some huge games globally. Those would be World War and Gunship Battle that we did case studies for. You can check the details on the website. We have a lot of case studies there, and we usually write technicalities, things like if they use AI algorithm, what kind of targeting, what kind of event setup, the event window, and so on. And what we received is we over-delivered their ROAS goals, and we also had a strong ROAS growth for them as well, for both titles that we ran in Japan, Korea, and UK. Now, to sum up what Gamelight effect is, this is the transition that happened in the reward UA. So if there was before one of the mix, just secondary channel, now game publishers started noticing how big it can get and how much budgets they can be, because they can also scale way more. For a certain degree, it was not happening also because before reward channels couldn't deliver as much, and now with Gamelight we could deliver way more. So it was bringing more attention to the source too, that why do we have this kind of policies within the company? Why do we limit to a certain degree that we wouldn't spend more than X% of our budgets on reward UA at higher budgets? So there was more and more interest coming from game publishers who would promote their games within rewarded networks and get more value, and this means there are more budgets. And when there are more budgets, it means there's higher demand, which resulted in more rewarded apps being launched. So this right now, if you have noticed in the last year, there are, if 2 or 3 years ago, there were 2 to 3 names you would count within the rewarded sphere. Now there are 10, 15, 20 companies that come, like immediately pop up in the mind, and there are even more coming up because there's so much budget and interest in the rewarded sphere right now. There are more companies are interested to also offer this to game publishers. This is also interesting because within the last years, gaming industry has been either stagnating or going down within the ad tech gaming. So like 10 years ago, there were much bigger budgets, much higher CPIs, much easier budgets to spend within the industry in general. And last years, it has been really stagnating or going down. So there is very few companies and industries within our industry that have been growing, and Rewarded is one of them, if not the only one. I can't think of actually anything else. So everything else has been really stable, so to say. So that created a lot of interest in the Rewarded UA. And it became also major UA source for game publishers. I mentioned that they would spend majority of their budgets on UA, so 78% instead of 10% now, or sometimes 100% if, for example, in our case, that they would pause everything else, just run us, or they would just do soft launch with just Rewarded channels. And this is the boom that we had. So the result of it is there are a lot of existing networks that launch Rewarded products. Those are companies like that had either Rewarded but not on mobile, and they would just focus on some loyalty things that they would do maybe offline too, or companies that would just be a normal affiliate network, ad network, and they wouldn't have Reward product. They started launching them. There are a lot of new startups that launched within Rewarded that focus just on that. Advertisers started prioritizing Rewarded channels, so we hear more and more and more how the advertisers are more interested to spend budgets in Rewarded specifically because they get higher ROAS, they get higher ARPU and LTV. And as a result, the whole Rewarded ecosystem is growing faster than ever. And this is what I mentioned, one industry within mobile gaming and ad tech that has been growing, and there are more and more players that are coming up. Yeah, thank you very much. If you have questions. Any questions?
Sure.
Yes.
You mentioned that your kind of company could increase retention of the games, so like and engagement in the games. So it's like if game has a low engagement, it's a high one should be. Like you mean like to keep the players in the game with the high engagement already. So to keep them like more than 30 days, for example, or just to increase this kind of, you know, when it's in a hyper-casual. So the retention of 30 days could be extremely low. So you're working with one side, whereas retention's too low to be good, or another companies like this kind of 4x strategies, where it's already okay, and you like keeping users engaged in game. So you mentioned like 20 levels, something 50 levels to keep this kind of user in distance. Or you could increase this kind of low engagement, low retention rate.
So initially when we started, we were primarily focused on IAP games. That's what the algorithm was built for. And around a year ago, we did adjustments, and now it also works more for ad monetized or hyper-casual games as well. And I can explain what exactly we did. So it improves retention and engagement in two ways. First happens before the install happens. So we don't just show the game to anyone, but because we pick the users that would be primarily interested in your game, you by default get higher engagement and retention rates because you drop this 20-30% of users that maybe would stop playing your game after a day or 2 days. So initially from the get-go you have higher retention, and then with the rewards you get two types of things. So first of all, how our reward algorithm works. Okay, our algorithm is like multiple parts, and one of the parts of the algorithm is the reward algorithm, which is not static as with other rewards. So it wouldn't be like, hey, finish this level and get this much rewards. It's happening on real time, dynamically, based on the user. So it's custom per user and per game. And what happens is, for example, user is playing the game, and let's say we had events set as finish level 5, and then 10, 20. And at 10, we see that the user is not progressing forwards, and automatically it will add another level, 15 or 12 or 11. So it will keep on adding more levels or changing reward structure based on how user reacts to those things. So if they react better to playtime rewards or event rewards, and with higher rewards more rare or lower rewards that happen more often, the algorithm will adjust to that user specifically. So that's why it works also better, because in this case, in other rewards cases, that would be just static for every user, so you define for the game, so to say, not for the user. In our case, because it's per user and based on how they react to those rewards, the rewards will change. And third thing to mention, we also have in our app, we have a page that is like My Games, where once you download any game, the game will go there, and we will show the events and different things for the users to do. And even if they deleted your game and they're just not interested, they're out, we will keep on sending them push notifications to reactivate them and to re-download your game to get back, to get them interested again in your game, which means it also drives retention, which you wouldn't have tools to do if you would be working with video networks. So you would have to pay extra for retargeting, right? You have to get those users again back to your game. In our case, because it's our user and we have it in our app still, we keep on trying to reactivate them and get back to your game, which also drives then retention and engagement in the long run.
Sorry, could you elaborate on this one? You mentioned that you have like dynamic goals, right?
Yeah.
So you just put in like it's all of the goals.
Dynamic
Time
rewards.
is, like prescripted from the management company.
Goals we get from game publishers we reach, they are not dynamic. They are usually static, whatever ROAS goals they have, whatever retention goals they have. Rewards we give to users are dynamic per user.
Sure. It's somehow could be affiliate to the management company. I mean, like, will they like pay much more like than they would like to pay? I mean, with this kind of dynamic range of rewards.
To pay for what?
To pay for actions.
Usually the costs are covered by rewarded companies. So it's not the game publishers who pay for the rewards, but the reward company. In our case, Gamelight pays for everything. Reward company
by,
install, or if it's CP.
Actions, right. Yeah.
In our case, it's installs. We do install based, but we optimize towards ROAS. But in general, in rewarded, very common is a CPI for installs, and then optimize towards event, or CP, CPA, multi-reward. So it would be basically for the actions or events within the game.
Thank you.
Sure. Anyone else? Okay, then thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.